Alright, greetings and welcome back, gentles and ladiesmen, to another King K-rific episode of Exo Plays Donkey Kong Country 3 on the Game Boy Advance. And I must confess, it's been a good 2 weeks or so since I've last recorded, and while I have been keeping up with editing on this, so I do kind of remember, I guess we finished off with... How many coins did we get? We got 21, so I guess I decided to leave off with right before another lovely Krematoa level, which are always fun. Hey, you've got another one of those cogs! Put it on the machine and see if anything happens! Looks like you're gonna have to find a few more of them to fit it all together. Perhaps there are more hidden in other areas. Go on, kitty, I reckon you can find the rest. Don't forget, there's still demolition to be done. I'm itching to press that button. Fancy giving me some coins then? Go on, have a go. Good one, kitty. That's bought you one of Boomer's specials. I guess I'm trying to do my best Sig from the Jak series. And I really do enjoy Jak 2 and Jak 3, by the way. I really misjudged the Jak trilogy. By the way, kitty, did I mention my last special cost 26 coins? But hey, it'll definitely be worth it. Truth be told, I don't really remember what voice I was doing for Boomer there. I guess I probably should have checked before I started recording, but it's too late now. Alright, so we're on with the third level of in Krematoa, that being Tyrant Twin Tussle. Which is probably my favorite level in this world, if I had to choose one. In the original version, I'd pick Crisscross Cliffs, but because they decide to ruin that stage by making the steel barrels hurt you suddenly, for no reason at all, this to me is probably the least offensive stage in this world. And, I don't know, it's fine. I don't really hate this level or anything. I could play it say that, but I cannot seem to get up there for some reason. Alright. It was just, I was throwing up my Dixie just a hair too late, and we missed the boat on that. So this level has, you know, usually these levels in these games have like some central gimmick to them. In the case of Tyrant Twin Tussle, the gimmick is Cluff and Clout here. They're the brother Kremlings, who apparently they have been through a cloning machine because they appear multiple times in this game. And they have those specific, I don't know, maybe there's like an army of Cluffs and an army of Clouts that, Chaos, I almost spoiled something there, that Chaos, who is the real mastermind of this game, by the way, there most certainly will not be a fake-out villain in this DKC3 game. But perhaps they're just an army of one and an army of another, and they just always happen to be in pairs. Okay, so this fucking thing. I beat it by accident. I know for a fact that when I was playing this on the Game Mavericks run, I had issues with that. Like, I died a couple times because I kept trying to jump over the steel barrels, and then getting hit by the steel barrels that were coming out of the bazooka. What I really like about Squitter in this level is that he can kill Cluff and Clout, which is just so satisfying, because the back half of the stage, you have no choice but to put up with them and actually try to dodge them. So it is admittedly pretty satisfying to be able to kill people with that. Over here, we have some bullshit. And you will not believe how many times I got killed by that. Or lost Kong and whatnot. Most of the time, the Cluffs and Clouts in this stage will follow one specific behavior. Like these guys, they jump very high. And you have to jump in between them when they, do that and stuff. Up over here is our next bonus room. And just take the hit. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to carry a TNT barrel across that pit and blow up the buzzes there. But good fucking luck getting them across the pit with those Cluffs and Clouts chasing after you. It's just not worth it. Just sacrifice a Kong and do it. It's really easy. Thank God. 'Cause, I don't know. Some of these bonus rooms can sometimes be a problem, and thankfully that's not one of them. I keep noticing frame drops, or V-sync issues. So I'm wondering what the problem is, because I don't have anything too taxing running in my computer right now. I don't fucking know. The fucking things is... Maybe I'm just getting more sensitive. It's probably always been like that. So bananas are your hints here. As you can see, the behavior for this pair of Clefs and Clouts is that they will jump in those set intervals, and there are spaces in between that you can stay in, but 2 of those spaces are occupied by red buzzes. So you stand in the middle and wait for them to go over you, and you know, this level's not that bad. It is easily the least offensive Crematoa stage in this game. You know, I could play this, and I'd say it's roughly on the level of the DKC2 Lost World stages, just in terms of quality. It's got kind of a challenging gimmick, but it's not annoying to play, and that's the big difference. Because you know, really, obviously there's bonus with barrel over there. So one of the commenters reminded me if that hint banana is there in the original, because I can't remember off the top of my head. Someone go pop the game in and let me know. Here we have another annoying... One of the more annoying green banana minigames in this game. As you can see, Clef and Cloud are jumping in a set pattern, and the green bananas randomly appear in parts of the stage. And sometimes I swear the hit detection on Clef and Cloud can be kind of annoying. Like, you'll be sitting right next to them, and as they kind of move upwards in their jump, they'll touch you, even though you're like ducking and stuff. And I don't know, you're given a lot of time, so I'd say just use all of it. Oh, fuck you. Oh, fuck. This could be close. Alright, we got it. That's what you call some mad guerrilla gangsta skills there. I just realized that I forgot to set my timer again, so I guess while the animation plays, I'll be pulling up the clock app on my computer, and we'll be using that to time out our episodes. You know that one commenter whose name I cannot recall, and I don't know, I'll look it up, why not? We're between stages anyway. Alright, and I'm back. So the commenter was Lens of Truth, who successfully saw through my Mario disguise and saw me for my Tom Selleck costume. Long story. He asks, why do you even have a timer? It doesn't do any good when you don't use it. Oh, you're right. In my defense, can sometimes be difficult to remember these things. Let's Plays, especially mine, I found when I'm doing them on my own, I just sort of ramble, and it's kind of like watching a certain politician's rallies, where he, you know, just sort of floats from one topic to another. And I don't know, it's not like I'm saying that's a bad thing, because obviously I do it. So, yeah, so I guess where we left off, we gotta go to Razor Ridge next, which is... K3 was the best world of the 3rd tier. I mean, that world has the least offensive levels of the bunch. I don't really mind a lot of them. Razor Ridge... I mean, I guess there was the toboggan level, which I didn't like in K3. I know that first time I played, whatever that level was with the sniper in it, I had troubles with it, but it's actually a pretty simple stage, as long as you keep moving and stuff. It's just, you stop moving, that's how you get hit, so as long as you keep the flow going, you can get through that. I don't know, maybe K3 is okay. Razor Ridge, though, even though, you know, obviously at this point, I have a lot of practice with DKC3. Not that you can tell sometimes because of how many times I fuck up in this series. But I have practice with this game at this point and can deal with many of the levels fine. Even then, this level we're playing right here, which is, I can't remember, it's Buzzer Barrage, I think is what it's called, is such a boring stage. This is a case where the camera and the remake is not super helpful. I know for a fact that when I was playing this bonus room, for my test playthrough, that I got killed basically by just trying to fly upwards because I couldn't see. The vertical camera work, camera programming in this game is not as competent as the first two, if I have to say so. Or maybe it's on the same level as the first two, but it's just like, it wasn't as noticeable before because of how the levels were laid out. Like, there's a level coming up later that gets pretty bad with that in this world, actually. And I've been building up to it in previous episodes, I'm pretty sure. So when we get there, I'll be sure to talk about that. But this level, Buzzer Barrage, I think, is probably one of the most boring stages in DKC3. It's not a terrible level. You can play it just fine. I do hate the copter enemies, if I'm being honest. Cat of Nine Tails are the enemies that I kind of hate in the second game. But even then, once I learned about the learned that as long as you jump into them, they can't kill you. Like, I didn't know what the conditions were. I didn't used to know how you were supposed to jump into them to go upwards. Now I do know you jump into them while they're in the tornado state. And that's what you do with it. But with copters, they still give me shit every now and again. And I remember the first time I played this game, certain stage coming up in Razor Ridge, I had a really annoying time with those motherfuckers. And they give you a lot of time for this bonus room. I guess that's nothing new, but there's one bonus room later, and there may or may not be new levels in this game. And that stage gets pretty irritating, there's like one bonus room where they just basically give you barely enough time. You gotta dodge a bunch of enemies. Just not very well thought out. The new levels might be sloppy, I'm just saying. If there were new levels in this game, which there may or may not be. May or may not be. But this level, I just find that it's kind of dull. It kind of drags. It's really slow paced. You know what would have been fun would have been to have played as real squawks and not purple quawks here. Because who wants to play as quawks? You know what would have been fun? The level where you get to shoot people. That would have been fun. I mean, if they wanted to make a more puzzle-driven level, sure, but there's barely any puzzle stuff in here. Most of it's just you carrying barrels around. I don't know, I guess that's puzzle, I guess. But it's so simple, like... Maybe there could have been a stage where you've got to, like, drop barrels in a sequence or something. You know, like you've got, you know, bring in some Klonoa GBA sort of elements where you got to, like, put the TNT barrel in one place and Theo barrel, and, you know, that could have been interesting. That would have been a good use of quawks here. But instead, it's just a really slow, lumbering level, and you just wish that you could shoot people. I don't know, that's just how I feel about it anyway. Down here we have our coin for the stage. And once again, I can barely see where I'm going, and there's a copter in the shaft underneath us. Which sometimes kills me, which is always annoying when something that you can't see gets you like that. Like, I couldn't see that coming. Like, you could barely see it coming in the original, but here it's like... You know, it's factual. The GBA screen is smaller. Like, if you compare the resolutions, we're talking about 256 by 224 compared to 240 by 160. So the GBA is like 60 pickles. The GBA is like 60 pixels smaller vertically than the SNES was, and I keep getting killed by that fucking copter. And I'm going to take full responsibility for those deaths. Not blaming the game on that, because... I don't know, it's clearly my fault, and there's no way I could explain my way out of that. But... Yeah, and it's 60 pixels smaller, it's factually smaller. The way you get around that is by panning the camera downwards as you go down the shaft. Which can't be that difficult to program, because I've seen games do it before. But, I don't know, like I said, my master theory... Or, I'm sorry, my master hypothesis... If I use theory incorrectly in that circumstance, I'd have to trade in my social science degrees. My hypothesis is that this game was rushed out the door and not quite finished. Like, the levels are all playable, and the controls feel fine, and the new stuff is finished, but, you know, obviously, There's no scrapbook, the mini games feel like they're not finished. Stuff like that. There's no status screen, which would have been really easy to program. I don't know how they couldn't find time to put that in the game. But the game doesn't feel finished, and I feel like that applies to whatever I was talking about. I can't remember at this point. What was I talking about? I can't remember. Well, shit. I don't know, this game feels like it wasn't finished, and that... Like, one thing I guess I haven't mentioned about the soundtrack, because I've been talking about the soundtrack a lot. I guess this stage, the track is called Cavern Capricious. You know, like capricious, but it's the singular noun. Cavern Capricious in the original, it's okay. It gets the job done. I'm not gonna act like Cavern Capricious in this game is like a masterpiece track or anything, but I'd rather listen to this, personally. I can remember Cavern Capricious GBA pretty well. But with Cavern Capricious on SNES, it's a pretty meh track all around. It's fine. It's okay. This, you know, it's not one of David Wise's best tracks of all time, but I'd rather listen to this personally. I don't really feel too strongly about it one way or another. This is one of the most annoying bonus rooms in the game, just in terms of getting into it. But for some reason, I'm having a really easy time of it. Basically, this copter here, there was a copter back before the bonus room who comes out of a shaft. And your only hint that a bonus room is up there is that there's some bananas there. Which may or may not be in the original. Feel free to say so in the comments. Because again, I don't know, it's only really been a few months, but I cannot remember for the life of me. We're skipping that because it's the same thing. Good day, Crazy Kongs. My name is Benny. Me and my brother Bjorn run the chairlifts in this region. Would you like to be using the chairlift? Okie dokie, strap yourself in and away you go. I apologize for my racist humor. Or, I don't know, nativist? Whatever you call that. It was offensive somehow. And I don't know, maybe I'll do a certain voice for the other... for Bjorn, who we'll be meeting later. Maybe Bjorn from Jake and Amir. Okay, so Buzzer Barrage, my complaint was that it was just kind of a dull stage to play. And especially when you die in it on the damn copters and have to keep redoing chunks of it. Because it's such a slow, plodding level. It's not the most offensive stage of all time or anything, but, you know. This level, on the other hand, is just sucks. I don't know what else to say about it. It's pretty much universally agreed upon that Kong-fused Cliffs is not a good stage. And the reason for that is that it's such a claustrophobic level to play. I remember when I played this game for the first time that I was having a real annoying time of it. Because, you know, obviously I wasn't quite as good as at video games as I am now, and I'm not exactly a master even today. But basically the gimmick of the stage is that we have this rope that we are climbing for the whole stage. And the rope has a little fireball on the end. It is going up like a wick or a fuse on a bomb. And meanwhile, there's a bottomless pit below us, and there is auto-scrolling. And screen crunch. And basically, the idea of this whole stage is that you've got to climb up the rope while avoiding whatever's going on, which is fine conceptually. If the screen size was bigger, like, even on SNES, it's a pain to play. On GBA, it's like, I don't know, more or less the same. I can't tell a huge difference. It doesn't feel too much worse to play. Again, I've played this game many times, so it's not like I'm gonna die super much. But, you know, still, I imagine everybody who's played this level knows what I'm talking about. And I just had the worst time in this level the first time I played this game, and it just took me way too many tries to beat, and I was not having fun with it at all. It's just a bad idea for a stage. Like, if this were in the Donkey Kong Country Returns games, where it's like a fully 3D game and you can make the camera be as slow or as close or as far away from Donkey Kong as you want, then that would probably be better. I'd probably enjoy that more. But this stage, with such a tiny screen and the fact that you can barely see what's above you or below you, I don't enjoy it all that much. I think that's fair enough to say, is it? I mean, it's my subjective little opinion there. One thing that's annoying about this level, especially towards the end, because we're in the back half of the stage now, is that the copters here will come down and you can barely see them until they're right on top of you. Climb all the way up, and the camera fucked me over there, but throw this. Yeah, so there's a wall over here, it bounces off and hits the coin. I guess you can jump down there and try to, you know, jump upwards as it's, as the barrel's coming towards you, and then it can hit him that way, but what I did just did works too. Let's see, what items do we get? I think it's, did we get that wrench yet? We need 50 coins to buy, okay, to get in on that side quest, so we're gonna have to hold off on that. Here's the level I've been building up to for a while now, Floodlit Fish. In the original, this is a fine little level. I don't have too many complaints about Floodlit Fish in the original. In the GBA version, they made it worse. And again, it has to do with the fact that the camera is not programmed very well. As you can see, as I'm going down the shaft, I can barely see where I'm going. It's vertical camera panning. In a more smartly designed, more intelligently designed game, we'll go with that for adverb rather. What you would do is you would program the camera so that if your character is traveling straight down, the camera will pan upwards so that you have more space underneath you so that you can see where you're going and dodge accordingly. For some reason, because this game was rushed, and this is what I was talking about earlier, I think, because this game was clearly rushed and not quite finished, they didn't bother with that. They just, I don't know, maybe they just ran out of time, they were gonna polish up the camera later, but that release date was coming up and, we haven't quite finished testing out the Swinky's Dashes levels yet. We need to be working on that. This is acceptable enough to release. Not perfect, we'll come back to it later if there's time, but I know, I guess there wasn't time, so they just couldn't. Like, I don't think they did this on purpose. I think the game was rushed and they didn't have time to polish out the camera as much as it needed to. And I will say, as I've been kind of getting at in recent episodes, it is a lot harder to play this on a GBA screen. Because it's so small and it's right in front of you. I'm playing this on my computer monitor through the Game Boy, the DS capture card with the GBA slot and whatnot. So I have the game footage blown up 6 times, exactly. 1440 by 960, do the math, folks. What's 240 by 160 times 6? Now you know. And that's how you get even integer scaled footage that looks really nice on a digital display. But more to the point, doing a practice playthrough this level, and I died like way too many times in this stage. It's not really a difficult stage per se, but fucking camera just is such a pain in the butt for this level. Like, if you're playing this on an emulator, you'll probably have a fine enough time with it. You probably won't notice too much of an issue. But if you're playing this on the original hardware, which is what it was designed for, it is so hard to see where you're going. And we're not even at the worst of it. There's more to the stage. Like, the back half is where we're going to be traveling more downwards, and we're going to be having these lurchin enemies going in set vertical patterns, and you're just supposed to know when they pop up so you can dodge them. And even having played this game as many times as I have, I still don't have it all totally memorized at this point. And yeah, like that, we're going to be seeing a lot of this coming up. And you're playing on the tiny 3.5-inch screen, and you have the terrible camera. It's a recipe for disaster. You're gonna die a lot. I should mention that the gimmick of this stage is supposed to be that you hit this bounty bass, I think is what it's called. And the bounty, or I think it has its own name, but it's a bounty bass that when you hit it, it lights up the room. Basically, it's like Glimmer's Galleon 2.0, except instead of having a, torchlight trouble squawks like Animal Buddy flying behind you, you have these enemies that you have to hit, and then you have a certain amount of time to get through parts of the stage and get to the next one before the level darkens again. Problem, much like Glimmer's Galleon and DKC2 GBA, because of the whole, backlighting fiasco, Nintendo was just too goddamn cheap to put backlights in their portable consoles for some reason. It is true that they use up a lot of, energy, a lot of battery power, but it's like, come on. It's like, I guess back then you had to use batteries. Like, part of the reason why the original Game Boy didn't have color, was because that uses up so much battery. Like, people will always tell you that the fucking Game Gear, the Sega Game Gear, it had color, the graphics were much better, and I think the screen resolution was a lot bigger too. Okay, how am I supposed to do this? Okay. The resolution was a lot bigger, but fucking batteries on the Game Gear would, barely last at any time at all. I think it was like 4 hours and a full set of batteries, and it took like 6 of them too. You had to put 6 batteries in your Game Gear to power it for only 4 hours. So I guess, systems back then were just very energy inefficient. Still. But by the time it got to the Game Boy Advance, it should have just been backlit to begin with. There was no reason that a game... Like, it really did not do a lot of the games any favors in terms of how they've aged and stuff. It's like, obviously, you play it on the original hardware it was intended for, it looks better and it looks fine. But I wouldn't have to constantly keep reminding people of that if they had just made the smart choice to begin with, but I don't know. Armchair businessman, that's me. Point is, the gimmick of the level kind of goes out the window compared to the SNES version. In the original, it actually got pretty dark. I mean, it's not like it was unplayable, but the colors faded out quite substantially. Yeah, so it was hard to see what was going on, so you needed to hit those glowfish. In this version of the game, unless if you're playing on the original AGS 100 model Game Boy Advance. Actually, I think AGS 100 is the original SP. And unless if you're playing on the original model Game Boy Advance with the candy bar form factor, that's what the hamburger styled, going back to like first grade with that one. That's what the sideways oriented systems are called. It's called the candy bar form factor. And then obviously you've got clamshell, which is for the vertical ones that close. I don't know, the Game Boy is kind of its own little beast. Like, you see, I have to keep kind of edging downwards and then stopping, because I have no idea when a lurchin is gonna pop up and nuke me. It's not fun to play. It's easier to play when you have the bigger screen, you can upscale the game and have basically bigger pixels and whatnot. It doesn't mean that it's well designed. And, playing it in the actual original hardware really highlights that. Anyways, because for some reason, every single DK coin had to be a coin minigame. Every single one of these water levels has a little chunk afterwards where you have to do that. But I digress. It's been 30 fucking minutes. It's long enough for an episode. So, we're gonna stop here. Join me next time. What was this? I think the episode I just released was part 7. Released that on Wednesday of this week. So this is going up like the day after I record it. So join me in episode 9 when we continue on through Razor Ridge. And I don't know, I guess fight the boss. Till then, I'm Exio and I will see you guys next time.